What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Check this out right quick. Urban League declares a state of emergency for civil rights in the U.S. in response to, guess who? Donald Trump. This is fascinating. The blatant hypocrisy in this news article is off the freaking charts, y'all. It really, really is. And we're going to get into all of it. But y'all smash that like button for me and subscribe if you're new around here. That'd be great. Check this out, y'all. One of the nation's oldest civil rights organizations on Thursday declared a state of emergency for anti-discrimination policies, personal freedoms, and black economic advancement in response to President Donald Trump's upending of civil rights precedents and the federal agencies traditionally tasked with enforcing them. Oh, here we go, folks. Oh, it's Donald Trump is racist again. The orange racist over here. The orange Hitler, if you will. Oh, he's the evil guy. He's just evil incarnate. Right? Well, it's never been proven that Donald Trump is a racist. And there's actually very, very little evidence to show that he is a racist. Right? Very little evidence at all, considering his track record. But they still try to push this narrative. And, you know, good on people, most people, for not buying into it. But, you know, it is red meat for their base, for the left, for these actual racists that are in the Democratic Party. Right? We're going to get into that. That's insane. The Democratic Party is nuts, y'all. It really, really is. Trying to push that Republicans are racist, right? Like, I'm sure there's a couple of Republicans out there that are racist. And the far right, I'm sure those guys are racist. But for the most part, most people that fall on the spectrum, right? I'm sorry. No, Republicans are not racist. Overwhelmingly, I would say so. But Democrats, yeah, not so much. They're the ones always pushing the race-baiting nonsense. They're the ones always pushing segregation, at least these days. They're the ones always pushing the DEI nonsense, which is racist against white people, and also racist against black people. As a matter of fact, racist against everybody, because they want to put you in a box, and then they want to pit those boxes against each other. That's racist, folks. That is to make sure that you and I are yelling and screaming at each other over our freaking skin color instead of focusing on what the politicians are doing. That's what they want, folks, and that's what all of that race-baiting nonsense is all about. This entire news article, that's what this entire news article is about, is trying to pit us against each other. Because when the people rise up against the people in power, bad things tend to happen to their power, at least. So, I'm just saying, you know, just quoting facts here. Don't kill the messenger, if you will. The National Urban League's annual State of Black America report accuses the federal government of being increasingly determined to sacrifice its founding principles and threatening to impose a uniform education system and a homogeneous workforce that sidelines anyone who doesn't fit a narrow, exclusionary mold, according to a copy obtained by the Associated Press. Like, how is Donald Trump trying to do this? Once again. Like, and what exactly are they talking about? Now, look, the homogeneous workforce, what do you mean by that? What do you exactly mean by that? Does that mean because Donald Trump is getting rid of DEI, which is racist against white people and exclusionary of white people, does that mean to them that getting rid of that means that it's exclusionary in the other direction, or just exclusionary? Well, I mean, that's what they're saying. But that's what they're trying to tell you with this when you sweep away all the BS. Hang on, Donald Trump's getting rid of DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Well, come to find out, you look underneath all the, you know, you pop the hood on these things, and hang on, there's no diversity, equity, or inclusion. It's more of exclusion and less diversity. Now, the equity, I don't know. I don't even know exactly what that's supposed to represent, right? You know what it's supposed to mean, but it's insane, right? Because equity cannot exist anywhere. That it just doesn't happen. I'm sorry. Everything ends up with inequalities due to decisions, down the road, life choices, and specific situations. Things are going to happen, so everything cannot be equitable. I'm sorry. So that whole thing is just a dog whistle, if you will. Rough. This is all fascinating, right? A uniform education system. I want to dig in on that because what is wrong with that? Like when they said that, I'm like, what do you mean, uniform education system? Don't you think we should have standards that we adhere to? But, for them, they engage in this obligatory nonsense that just blows my mind. If left unchecked, the authors write, they risk reversing decades of progress that have made America more dynamic, competitive, and just. And how? Like, exactly. They never explain how. They'll just tell you this is what's happening and never explain why or how this is happening. They'll just tell you something and then don't expound upon that. And they expect you to just believe them. Like the corporate press lies on a consistent basis. You think we're just going to buy that without any sort of explanation at all? The report released Thursday at the group's conference in Cleveland, Ohio, criticizes the administration for downsizing federal agencies and programs that enforce civil rights policies. Hang on just a second. They've downsized the entirety of the federal government. Of course that's going to happen. So you're just going to focus in on this one thing because they're downsizing all of it? See, once again, though, this is meant to make you believe, that Donald Trump is going after the civil rights division to get rid of it or something, to downsize it so it can't work as effectively. But that's just not true, is it? No, it's not, because he's downsizing the entirety of the federal government because the federal government cannot sustain the workforce that is currently employed at the federal government. But they don't tell you those things, folks. That's just insane. The manipulation. The authors aim to highlight what they saw as a multi-year coordinated effort by conservative legal activists, lawmakers, and media personalities to undermine civil rights policy and create a political landscape that would enable a hard right agenda on a range of social and economic policy. That's all just blitter-blatter nonsense. That's all that was. It is not random. It is a well-funded, well-organized, well-orchestrated movement of many, many years, said Mark Morial, president of the Urban League. For a long time, people saw white supremacist politics and white nationalism as on the fringe of American politics. Hang on just a second. Like, why white nationalism there? Like, once again, this is what the left use, and I love how they put white supremacist in with that same sentence right there, trying to differentiate between the two, because they kind of are different. They're very, very different. But one has got a colloquial definition that does not mean the same thing that it should, in other words. Right? White nationalist. If you take those two words and separate them, you got nationalist, which the definition of is just somebody who puts their own country first and loves the country that they live in. Then you got white over here, okay? So that just means a white person that loves his country. That doesn't mean anything else outside of that. But the left and Democrats, they endeavor to try to make those two kind of the same thing. But they're definitely not. Because what's fascinating is they're not mutually exclusive, essentially, is because you can be a white supremacist and not a white nationalist. But you can't be, according to them, a white nationalist and not a white supremacist. Fascinating that is, folks. This is what they try to do. They try to conflate those two to where when you hear white nationalist, that's what you think of as white supremacist. But they are not the same thing. White supremacist shouldn't exist at all. Any kind of supremacy as far as race should not exist whatsoever. But in the minds of the left, they're all over the place, folks. Everybody is a racist. And what they do is they form this trap, right? Called covert white supremacy. That if you're not willing to admit that you're racist, you're a covert white supremacist. So how do you respond to that? Like, we covered a video the other day where this guy was asking this lady if she was a covert white supremacist. And I kind of brushed over it at the time when I covered it. I didn't think about it until I was editing after the fact. And I was like, there's no way to really answer that, to be honest with you. Right? And what she was doing, she was refusing to say that she was a covert white supremacist, because I think she knew, either that or she was just dumb. She knew that if she responded in the affirmative, like, no, I'm not racist, or, I'm not a covert white supremacist, that would actually mean the same thing, right? So it's like there was no way out of that, and she knew that. That's why she kept saying, oh, I'm just here for talking about this, whatever subject it was. I forget what it was right off the top, but it was fascinating, y'all. But once again, folks, trying to misdirect you. It has now become the mainstream of American right, whose central foundation is within the Republican Party. Oh, is that so? Once again, folks, Republicans are evil over here. Did we forget that Republicans are the party that advanced the Civil Rights Act? Did we forget that? Did we forget that the Democratic Party is the party that tried to filibuster the Civil Rights Act? Did we forget that the Republican Party is the party that abolished slavery in this country and fought an entire war to get rid of it and to bring equal rights to everybody? That is the Republican Party accomplishments. Now, the Democratic Party is trying to take credit for this and pat themselves on the back for getting the Civil Rights Act across the line, right? Like, no. Sorry, that was all Republicans. Sure, some Democrats voted for it, but all Republicans voted for it. People don't think about these things. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Jeez. The report directly critiques Project 2025, a sweeping blueprint for conservative governance coordinated by the Heritage Foundation think tank. Project 2025 advised approaches to federal worker layoffs, immigration enforcement, and the congressional and legislative branches, similar to the Trump administration's current strategy. Yes, but there's nothing wrong with any of these. The Urban League report condemns major corporations, universities, and top law firms for reversing diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. It also criticizes social media companies like Meta and X for purported censorship of black activists and creatives and content moderation policies that allegedly enabled extremists to spread radicalizing views. The Trump administration has said many policies implemented by both Democratic and Republican administrations are discriminatory and unconstitutional, arguing that acknowledgments of race and federal and corporate policies that seek to address disparities between different demographics are themselves discriminatory. Trump has signed executive orders banning illegal discrimination and promoting merit-based opportunity. What is wrong with any of this? He's totally right about that, because if you're going to go off on this anti-discriminatory campaign, it's going to eventually discriminate, right? If you find some discrimination, you're discriminating against that discrimination. It's fascinating how these people jumble all this nonsense up and think that, oh, Donald Trump is racist because he wants to end discrimination, because he wants to end their engagement in racism. They're like, oh, you can't discriminate against us. That's discrimination. We could be racist if we want to. Harrison Fields, a White House spokesman, said civil rights groups that oppose the administration aren't advancing anything but hate and division, while the president is focusing on uniting our country. The report, meanwhile, calls for the creation of a new resistance to counter the administration's agenda. Morial urged other organizations to rally to that cause. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. That report's a long, drawn-out report, and pretty much everything they said is true. It's in the report, true type of thing, but what they're saying is not. You know, Donald Trump is not a racist. He is not pushing racist policies, right? Like, I can't deny the existence that there are some boogeyman racists out there. Sure, those people exist. Those people are on social media, for goodness sakes. But overwhelmingly, people are scared to be racists, right? Sure, if you're a closet racist, where's the harm, right? If nobody knows you're a racist and you don't show any symptoms of being a racist, where is the harm in that? Like, I'm just saying. Like, you can point fingers all day long, but if there is no harm, how do you even know that these people are racist if you can't tell? Once again, trying to point to some sort of boogeyman is trying to pit people against each other. And that's what they're trying to do with this. Like, once again, sure, I'm sure some racists exist. Like, there's nothing we can do about that. But we've destroyed racism institutionally in this country a long time ago. And they're still not satisfied with that. They want reparations. For what? We cannot pay reparations to somebody that does not deserve those reparations. I am sorry. It does not make logistical sense or logical sense at this point, because everybody that deserves any sort of reparations from slavery or any discrimination before it was illegal, they're no longer alive for the most part, right? We can all agree to that. Therefore, reparations don't make any sense at all. But they still push for these things, and they still push to discriminate, because the remedy for past discrimination is current discrimination, according to some of these racists. But don't let the race-baiting nonsense fool you, folks. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.